Dan Dickau here for the Field of 68 Media Network. It's that time of year. The WCC tournament is over. Want to give you a super quick recap on that, as well as kind of predict a little bit about where Gonzaga may fall in the NCAA tournament bracket, who they may play, what it might look like, who they might have a chance to match up with. We'll get right into it. A really good semifinal win against San Francisco um, set up the rematch that I think everybody was expecting, anticipating, wanting to see against St. Mary's after they beat upstart Pepperdine, who was led by Mo Odom throughout the first few games of the tournament. But before we go too far, I want to first off thank our sponsors today. Um, McGillivray Environmental. You have any kind of earthwork needs, surveying, whatever it may be to get your land or your yard, your business prepared to add on. Look up McGillivray Environmental. They're based in Northern Idaho. They do a tremendous amount of work in Eastern Washington, Northern Idaho, Western Montana. Kip and his crew will do a tremendous job getting you right. Also want to thank Wave Capital Lending. If you're looking at getting into some real estate investing or looking for some financing in the world of real estate, look up Dan Cantiana and Wave Capital Lending. They do a tremendous job. Also want to thank Geico Insurance, your local insurance agent. Dan Can does a great job. He actually is my insurance agent here in Spokane, and he's been unbelievably helpful when different insurance questions have come up for myself. So thank you to them for their support. If you get a chance, give them a call. They will do their best to get you right with whatever your needs may be. But back to the Field of 68, the Bulldog broadcast. Talked about that setup of the rematch for the St. Mary's Gonzaga game. Third time they played this year. Clearly, St. Mary's won the first two. They won the league by a good 3 games. It was a game that everybody wanted to see. Gonzaga needed it as bad, more than you could imagine. I think just for the psyche of the fans, maybe more so than the psyche of the program. But it was a hard fought victory. I thought Gonzaga got off to a tremendous start early on. They set the pace, they set the tempo, they set the physicality. That they were going to be the first ones to hit. They were going to be the aggressors. I think you clearly saw that in the first 6, 7 minutes of the game. But in a game like this against St. Mary's, a rivalry game, a game that obviously has a ton of meaning to get that automatic bid to the NCAA tournament, you knew that St. Mary's, as good as they are, they were not going to just give in. They weren't going to back down, and they were going to get back into the game, and they did. And Gonzaga handled every single run that St. Mary's tried to put together. But when you look at the big picture stuff, and I just want to touch on this quickly because I know if you're listening to this, it's a couple days removed. You've probably read the articles. You may have seen or watched some of the other podcasts that are out there in regards to Gonzaga basketball. I know Adam Morrison does a tremendous job with his. But I think the biggest things are they match they set the tempo, they set the physicality, they set the pace, and then every time St. Mary's made a mini run, Gonzaga had an answer, and the answers came from a number of guys, right? I thought Caliph Battle was tremendous in that championship game. I thought EK was really good. Nemhart controlled the pace. I thought even though Ben Gregg only had 2 points, that was an emotional uplifting play that he had where he got that quick zip pass off a pick and roll and then into a high low where he dove and he got it from the big on the high low for a dunk. I thought that was a tremendous play. But I really thought Braden Huff was the difference. Has struggled in the past against St. Mary's, a lot of it because of their physicality and their size, but a really unique and great decision, I thought, by Coach Few and the coaching staff to start Braden Huff. And he ended up just being really good, as good as he's been over the last month or so. So that was great to see because you want guys playing their best basketball at this time of year. And he's had a little bit of ups and downs recently, but you get a performance like that leading in the NCAA tournament. You couple that with how consistent EK and Nemhard have been, and then Battle, even though he's been up and down, he was really good in the conference tournament. I think Hickman's been solid as of late. You got a team that's really starting to peak at the right time, and that's clearly what you want to see. Um, so I thought that those were all good things to see. And as mentioned, moving on to the NCAA tournament, they've been there every single year since 1999. It doesn't get old for a former player to see the success that they're having. It doesn't get old for the coaching staff, I'm sure. This year has been a challenge, simply for the fact that the expectations were so high. And then they couldn't win close games early in the season. Their eight losses are by a combined 41 points. And you started hearing a little bit of the chatter, very similar to last year. Are they in? Are they out? I never thought they were out of the tournament, just because you look at their predictive metrics in regards to the net and the Ken Palm. But you do kind of get those concerns when you can't win a close game, and then St. Mary's wins two, before they prevail in the third and get that automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. But there's a tremendous website out there if you as a fan really want to kind of dive into to really figure out where Gonzaga may be slotted as a seed in the NCAA tournament. It's called bracketmatrix.com. Essentially, it combines 75, 80, 85 maybe different bracketologist websites that are out there, and kind of puts it in an easy to read chart in a predictive way to figure out who is in, who is out, what are their percentages to make it, and then what their seed line would be. And so just wanted to go through that really quick. The ones and two seeds are pretty much, I think, locked in. The only question might be, does St. John's stay at the two line if they win the Big East tournament? They're playing really good basketball. But the ones they have is Auburn, Duke, Houston, and Florida. The twos, Alabama, Tennessee, Michigan State, and St. John's. So the reason I mentioned those teams right off the top is because Gonzaga, in all of these bracket matrices, bracketologists essentially are slotting 7, 8, 9, 10 as their seed. There's only two brackets that are out there that have them as a 6 seed. So if you look at 7, 8, 9, 10, clearly a 7 plays a 10, you win that game, you're going to play a 2 seed. If you're an 8 or a 9, you win, you're going to play a 1 seed. So that's why I mentioned those teams. And each of those teams present unique problems. Auburn is clearly a different team this year than they were last year. Defensively, they got speed, length, quickness, but offensively, they are an absolute juggernaut. Push the pace, shoot the three, but they have Janai Broom, who I think is going to share Player of the Year honors with Cooper Flagg. I don't see how you can honestly not pick Cooper Flagg as a Player of the Year based on what he's done as a freshman and the expectations coming in. But I would imagine that those two, Janai Broom and Cooper Flagg, split all of the Player of the Year awards. But Auburn, as mentioned, unbelievable season. Duke, the thing that scares me about Duke on the offensive end of the floor, if Gonzaga gets to match up with them in the second round, is Cooper Flagg's versatility offensively. And then they've got just enough other good pieces. Tyrese Proctor being one. Con Knipple is a really good shooter, but he's overlooked as a cutter and a finisher as well because he's such a good shooter. But defensively is where Duke really stands out to me. They don't necessarily do it with physicality like Houston, which I'll touch on in a second, but they do it with schemes, and more importantly, I think they do it with length. I think Malawach, as a freshman at like 7'1" with like a 7'4" wingspan, has really changed the dynamic of who they are defensively this year as compared to last. Next 3 seed would be Houston. They go from the American, where they dominated it, to the Big 12, where it was, well, they're going to take a step back. Well, Keldon Sampson is a heck of a coach. And so they have dominated the Big 12 this year. And they are tough. They are physical. That is a team maybe I think that gives Gonzaga gives me a little more pause than a lot of other ones and twos that Gonzaga could match up just because of the physical, just grinded out nature. They remind me of a more athletic and a more physical, maybe not more physical, but physical like St. Mary's, but with bigger size and more athletes. And offensively, I think that athleticism allows to get them out in transition a little bit more maybe than St. Mary's. The fourth number one seed is Florida. You're a WCC fan. It's not going to shock you, surprise you that Todd Golden is doing an amazing job down in Gainesville. I think the thing that stands out to Florida is their balance. I think they are really good on both ends of the floor. And they've got depth. I mean, they can bring in, 3-4 interior guys that can protect the rim, that can rebound. And then they play with great pace. They offensively, they're organized. They run great split actions, which is similar to what he did at USF. So those would be the possible matchups as a one seed if you're an 8-9 and you win it. If you're a 7 or a 10, Gonzaga would be matching up with Alabama, Tennessee, Michigan State, or St. John's. Alabama, they've got one of the best offenses in the country. Gonzaga's played them in the past. They've got a really good point guard in Mark Sears, who can score it at all levels, but they are paint and threes. They want to get the ball in the paint, create foul opportunities, shoot a lot of threes. Defensively, they're up and down. But I think Gonzaga and Alabama would be a really fun matchup. The next one is Tennessee. Tennessee is another one of those teams that is as good as you get on the defensive end of the floor. Rick Barnes, Coach Few are really good friends, but they are a really balanced team. A good point guard is a guy, Ziegler. Offensively, they slow it down a little bit more maybe than some other teams, but they are really good. Michigan State, big out of the Big Ten, one of the most physical teams that you can remember. Gonzaga struggled with them in the past, but Tom Izzo, it's March, so he's got his team ready. And then the fourth 2 seed would be St. John's. They'd play a up and down physical style defensively. They'll trap you, they'll press you. You don't know what you're going to get other than them playing hard. And then offensively, they're running some good stuff, and they also play with a ton of pace. Thank you to our presenting sponsors. If you have interest in joining the Bulldog Broadcast, the Field of 68 Media Network, for being a sponsor, don't hesitate to reach out to me, Dan Dickau, at hotmail.com. Presenting sponsor, McGillivray Environmental can handle any of your construction needs, specializing in new construction, repairs, residential and commercial asphalt paving, excavation, environmental remediation, and hazardous waste. Reach out to Kip McGillivray at McGillivray Environmental today at 208-556-6384 for your free estimate. Are you interested in investing in Pacific Northwest real estate? Are you an accredited investor, private investor, or want to be a private investor? Look up my friend Dan Can's website, investwithdancan.com. I've known Dan for over a decade, and he is honest, hardworking, truthful, and will do a great job in helping you navigate the world of real estate lending and investing. Check him out today, investwithdancan.com.
The world's leading immersive basketball training experience that combines in-person skill development with digital gamification and virtual competition. At Shoot 360, you will train with our coaches, measure your skills with our proprietary technology, and track your progress on the Shoot 360 mobile app. Shoot 360 Spokane. Unlock your game.
Looking for a reliable local insurance agency that cares about you? Look no further than Dan Can Insurance Agency. They are local, committed to providing personalized coverage for home, auto, and life insurance. No more guessing. Their 8 friendly agents take the time to understand your needs and give you the best rates around. Call Dan Can Insurance today at 509-328-1422 or visit them at dancanspokane.com, because at Dan Can Insurance Agency, your family, not just a policy. Also, Dan Can has been an agent of mine for years. I highly recommend him and his valuable team. So you look at, Gonzaga, their average puts them at a 8 seed, as I mentioned. The other eights and nines, you're looking at the other eights would be Memphis, UConn, and Mississippi State. The nine, so that would be your matchup if it plays to fruition and they are an 8. Creighton, New Mexico, Georgia, Utah State. The tens, West Virginia, who they've played this year, Baylor, who they've played this year, Vandy, and Arkansas. And I'll just touch on these teams really quick. Memphis had a great year in the AAC. So when you look at these seven, eights, nines, and tens, well, we're really just focusing on eight, nines, and tens. Those are kind of you could slide to a 7 and play a 10. You could play pretty much any one of those teams. But I think the big things to look at, Memphis, great season. Gonzaga's played them in the past in the NCAA tournament. Penny Hardaway is doing a tremendous job. Their UConn, that would be an interesting. Say they slide to a 9, Gonzaga's in an 8. That would be a great matchup. They've played them many times in the past, lost to them earlier this year in Madison Square Garden. Mississippi State, Coach Jans is a really good coach. They're in the SEC. I don't know a ton about them as compared to some of these other programs and what they've done this year. But I think the SEC, as good as they are, they're still being overvalued, especially when we start talking about the nines and tens here coming up. Creighton out of the Big East, Gonzaga's played them many times. They've had an up and down season with some injuries, but tremendous big and Ryan Kalkbrenner and a good point guard in Stephen Ashworth. New Mexico out of the Mountain West, they won the league title. Their conference tournament starts today. After I record this, they got a tremendous point guard, Donovan Dent, Mountain West Player of the Year, as well as a really good big, and Nelly Jr. Joseph. He's got like 15 double-doubles on the season, very similar to Graham Ike and how he scores on the interior and dominates the glass. Georgia out of the SEC, they've had some good wins, but they're clearly on the bubble right now. And then Utah State out of the Mountain West as well. Jared Calhoun runs a very unique and interesting zone. They'll trap it when the ball gets to the low post. They'll trap the entry pass on the wing. They'll trap ball screens. They've got a lot of unique coverages, and so that is a difficult first round potential matchup because you don't necessarily see a zone like this too often. When you look at the tens, Gonzaga has already played West Virginia. They lost to them in overtime in the Bahamas. They look at Baylor. They beat them in the opening game season that set the expectation level so unbelievably high for Gonzaga. Vanderbilt and Arkansas are the two other tens, both out of the SEC. I don't see it from either of these two teams, why they should be in the NCAA tournament. And maybe those two are the tens that are in the playing game, but I don't believe that you can have two tens from the same league matching up in the rules of the NCAA tournament. I might be mistaken, but I don't think that can be the case. But Vandy, they've had some great wins, but sub 500, easily sub 500 in league. Maybe they make a run in the SEC tournament. I know they won their first round game. And then Arkansas, Calipari went there. They've had ups and downs. They're sub 500 in the SEC as well. It's one of those things where I don't see them. I would rather see, for example, say a Boise State, who in the bracket matrix as of this moment has like an 8% chance of making the NCAA tournament based on all the brackets having them in or out of the tournament. Them and North Carolina are the two teams that are on the outside looking in right now and are going to have to play really well in their conference tournament and hope that a couple of these SEC teams lose early, or a Big 10 or Big 12 team that's on the bubble in a similar spot lose early to allow them to get in. But that's something that really caught my eye was, who does Gonzaga play? What would their potential second round matchup be? What are a little bit about those teams? And again, the highest that I saw, there were two brackets that had Gonzaga as a 6 seed, but their average was a 7.34, which slides you to an 8 in their evaluation of what seed you're going to be. St. Mary's, they're at a 6, a solid 6. There was a number of 5 seeds that they've had on the bracket matrix, and that would be chalked to what they've done the last couple of years. The last 3 years, they've been a 5 seed. And I could see them being a 5, but more than likely, I think they will be a 6. So then, it leads you to, okay, well, those are the potential matchups, first round and second round. What does Gonzaga need to do to get ready? And, I just kind of look back at what does teams typically do in the WCC when you've got that about a week gap before you play. And I really like the fact that the WCC is early in conference week as opposed to late. A couple things it allows you to do. It allows you to get healthy, get rest, treatment, for whatever bumps and bruises you might have at this point of the year, which everybody has. What it also allows you to do is guys can get in the gym and get their individual skill work done that, with practice in a normal setting might be 2 hours. You might tailor it back and go about an hour and 15 minutes or so at this time of year. And then it gives you more energy to get your skill work in, and whether it's rep out jump shots, whether it's working on pick and roll passes, pick and roll reads, or different things, you've got time and energy to work on that. The other thing I think it allows you to do is start talking through some potential special situations, whether it's adding a new wrinkle on a baseline out of bounds or a sideline out of bounds play, or work it on special situations. For example, down two, and 7 seconds left, you're bringing the ball up the floor with no timeouts. You're down 4, other team has the ball, and there's 45 seconds left. How do you go for that first trap, and then after the first trap, try to steal it if not foul? So those are the kind of special situations that I think will be that get worked on a lot this week. But all in all, lots of good stuff going on for, Gonzaga fans to track and follow and get excited about. The one question that's going to come up a lot is, where are they going to be? I've heard Raleigh, North Carolina. I've heard Pittsburgh. I really haven't seen any of the brackets putting them in Seattle, which probably is a good thing because they haven't played well at Climate Pledge Arena. And I haven't seen many putting them in Denver, but that may change simply for the fact that they won the conference tournament. They got the automatic qualifier. But I think the one unique piece to look at in regards to that, whether they get shipped to the Midwest or the East, is there somehow, some way they're in the West bracket. So if they were potentially able to win 2 games, get back to the Sweet 16, those games would be at the Chase Center in San Francisco, which would allow a lot of Gonzaga fans to make it down there. So again, appreciate our big-time sponsors, mcgillivrayenvironmental, Wave Capital Lending, and Dan Can and Geico Insurance. So for the Field of 68 Media Network, this has been the Bulldog Broadcast.